You know, I gotta ask, why does everything just feel so phony these days? It's nothing new. Shit's felt pretty phony my whole life. I mean, the way that people talk to each other, the fake smiles they put on. But it's not just the fakeness of the individual, it's the fakeness of the whole system that we have in place. The way that we pretend that it's just politics as usual and that humans can be consumers for eternity and, keep destroying the planet for a little bit of profit, not mining things that we need, but things that are pretty, and just really looking at ourselves from an aerial view. It just seems so silly the way that commercials are still trying to sell you on garbage products that I just saw this ad for a chainsaw and it was Joe Rogan's voice. It was some crappy AI version of Joe Rogan, and I was thinking, I know everything's algorithm based now, but it's not just the ads, but where you get them. I will turn on an inspirational video, right? Something that's supposed to be, you know, helpful for a person in some way, shape, or form, or mental health, something related. And there'll be you know, a 40-second commercial before it, and then you start it, and after the first minute, there's another commercial, and then 5 minutes later, there's another commercial. This is something that's just become more and more prominent. And I think back to a time when things were a little more honest. For example, just even on YouTube, there are still plenty of videos out there without ads, without sponsorships every 30 seconds, selling you on, here's a guy telling you how to lead a better, happier life. And oh, by the way, I happen to be sponsored by BetterHelp. And I'm not trying to be too cynical here, but it's like, it's shameful the garbage out there people are promoting. BetterHelp has been shown to sell data to they sold it to Apple, and I heard they sold data to China, but they're selling people's personal mental health data to these big companies. And I'm like, every person who's, you know, making these videos is well aware of the company they're doing business with, and if they're not, then they're being dishonest. But there's just too much money on the table. And when I was younger, I remember thinking, what's the future going to be like? Can we ever get rid of these horrible advertisements that I grew up with, right? And the internet was kind of this hope. And then all of a sudden, pop-up ads were just everywhere. And we finally started getting rid of those, and now it's just become ingrained in the system. It's not companies trying to sell you stuff. It's other people trying to sell you stuff for the companies. So we have influencers now. We have people who are revered and looked up to for some reason or another. And at one time, this would have been a basketball star, right? Or maybe a famous actor. But now it's just some chick who got famous off of an Instagram, controversial video or something, or famous just to be famous, like the Paris Hiltons of the world. And, watching this just snowball and get worse and worse, it kind of took me by surprise, because I guess at one time I really believed that society was growing up, right? That the kids are getting smarter, they're, learning more younger, that they're going to be able to see through this crap. But instead they became the ultimate servers of this crap. They're the ones who are paying for this garbage. They're the ones who buy into a lot of this, influencer crap. I mean, just look at the way that the Prime energy drink was being fought for on the shelves, and people were selling them for like, you know, $30, $40 a can on eBay, because everybody had to have a bottle of Prime. And if you're not familiar with that story, it was the Jake Paul, or maybe it was Logan Paul. I never can tell the difference. I forget which one's which, but this is the same dude who sold these, NFTs and these, Bitcoin-like tokens, trying to do his own crypto. To all these young kids, trying to get into this, because he would even say, I want young people to be able to get into this stuff. Hey, Dad, will you buy me this crypto? And the next day, it's, completely collapsed, and then the dude gets all butthurt. But here's the thing: you've got an entire group of people backing up guys like that. We seem to fall into a very authoritarian type culture. Like, it's almost like it's a natural reaction of people to want so desperately to believe that somebody else has their best interest at heart that they neglect their own best interests. It's a fascinating look at human psychology. I'll tell you, I know that not everybody has the same perspective on consumer culture. I personally am not a consumer. I buy food, I have an old phone, old bikes, old tools. I don't need to buy new stuff to make myself feel like I'm important or that I deserve to have something new just because, you know, I'm told to buy it. Especially if I do need something, I'll get the best thing to do the job. But I don't buy things just for the novelty of buying them, especially not with clothing, for example. I haven't bought new clothes in years. I don't even remember the last time. I might buy a new shirt here and there or a pair of pants to go to some event, but I don't see the need to put on a brand name or to prove myself through wearing something or having something with a label on it. And I know that I stand kind of isolated on that because a lot of people really appreciate brands and brand names, and people become walking billboards, and it's just so phony to me, and I can't help it. I try not to judge individuals. I realize they're just people. And, it's not like if I see a guy all decked out in Adidas gear, I think he's a bad person or anything. I just think he's bought into some bullshit. Like the whole, I don't want to be original and look like myself. I want to look like the brand wants me to look. And you know who I'm talking about. A lot of folks out there who do that, and I just don't understand it, I guess. I wish people had more understanding of how their dollar could go further, just being themselves, and having to have the nicest car or a bigger house. It's like we always feel like we need something more, and we've been completely fooled into that, by a society that backs each other up on consumerism. Consumerism isn't something that was a normal part of human life. This was after the 40s. I believe it was in the 40s that Edward Bernays, who is, I think he's called the father of advertising. Maybe the Baron would be a better term, but he, you should read his own writings. He says, that we need to make America prosperous, we need to basically convince people that they need to buy more stuff. And this is where all this consumerism started, and why the products we make today are just total crap and aren't intended to last, because it's really just about buying the next one. And it's just so phony, but it's not phony because it's how most people operate. Not most people, but there are enough people who go out and buy a $2,500 handbag from Versace, not realizing that they paid some dude in Vietnam like $30 to make it. It's like 100 times markup on these things, and the labor is horrendous in some of these places. Like, there's just no shame. I guess here's the thing: if we lived in a consumer society where the products were made respectfully and where they were honestly sold, you've got companies like Apple who just have horrendous business ethics but pretend to be great, but completely trap people into their system by making it difficult to, say, send a video or a photo between them and Android devices. Like, they've been shown over and over to do things that make it harder for other users to communicate with them. And we all know what I'm talking about. But over half the people use Apple devices, and they'll stand up for Apple because it's the product they use. And it's not about Apple or Android. It's about all companies taking advantage of people in one way or another. Is that just part of human nature? Is it something we're taught? Like, I personally can't lie. If I have a product, I'm going to sell it for what it is. I'm likely to maybe even be a little insecure about things I make and talk it down. Well, it might not be made of the best material, even though it is. It's like you want to question your own product. I think that's a little humility that we put into things, especially if we are personally responsible. But when you have LLCs and corporate tiers, you have people who can just place the blame on somebody else, and it really says a lot about us that we're not able to see through this now with all the information we have at our fingertips. But that was my failure to assess how the internet would actually make us more closed-minded and ignorant rather than more open-minded and aware, because I never considered how algorithms could force people into a bubble that they don't even realize exists. And I think all of us need to wake up a little bit and realize that we can do so much better. For what it's worth, I guess. We don't need that $5 trinket on Amazon. We don't need the fancy jacket because it has a label on it. But there are times when quality matters, and those are the exceptions to the rule. Don't get me wrong. Anyhow, I guess I just wanted to rant kind of about the phony consumer culture. It's not that I blame capitalism. I've had this discussion with folks who are very anti-capitalist, and I am definitely not a socialist, because I know that to have socialism, socialist programs have to be run by people, and people are corruptible. And when you have socialism, it's more likely that the greed will be consolidated in one place rather than everywhere. The problem isn't capitalism, it's crony capitalism. It's allowing companies to dominate industries and to create monopolies by allowing lobbyists to buy off politicians. I think it needs to be almost more like the Wild West. Too many protections and securities and regulations keep small guys from, starting their own businesses. We have patent fraud and patent protection for items that aren't even made, just so a company, there's entire industries that are based on suing people for patent infringement. They just get patents on everything and wait for somebody to make something and then sue them for it. These things have to stop. People have to feel confident in creating a better product for people that isn't based on some brand name, but it's just a good quality brand, if you will. Because let's say even a pair of Nikes aren't what they used to be. I had 2 pairs that crapped out in like 2 months on me. I couldn't believe it. But here I am, old man screaming into the clouds, right? Just buyer beware, caveat emptor. And I'll see you all on the flip side. Peace out.